First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, this is Fox 12 Now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Greg Nibbler. That is a live look from our ski bowl camera there up on Mount Hood. And I will say, ordinarily this time of year, you'd probably see some snowboarders sitting there at the top of this run, some skiers going down, but as you can see right there, not a lot of snow. And this is certainly something that we've been talking about here over this entire season, this entire winter. Historically low numbers actually of snow. Still time for some to come. I mean, you know, we still have some months left, but we're starting to run down on that. And so we're going to be discussing that and just what that means as we look further out into the year. Again, this is Fox 12 Now. We live stream here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom every weekday starting at 1 o'clock. Going throughout the afternoon. So thanks for joining us. And we get to cover a wide range of topics and have these longer form interviews. Right now, we're going to talk about something that usually we don't like to bring up until closer to the summer, but that is wildfire season. Obviously, we're not in that right now. But what does this mean with this lack of snowfall? And how do officials actually try to ascertain what that's going to do for later down the road, how that's going to affect things like wildfire season? We're going to find out a little bit about that right now because we have an expert joining us. And we have Teresa Alcock from the Oregon Department of Forestry joining us right now, also goes by TZA. And thank you very much, for being here. You're a fire planning analyst, which is just such an impressive sounding title. But to start off, would you mind just telling us about that, what that is and what you do there for the Oregon Department of Forestry?
Well, good afternoon. I thank you all for having me. And yeah, I'm a fire planning analyst with the Oregon Department of Forestry, and usually I dip my toe into fire statistics for the year, finding out what our primary fire causes are. I look at the fire environment and conditions that affect our fire season in terms of when fire seasons might start, what kind of background climate situation we have, what kind of more near-term weather that we're looking at. And I am the Salem seat of the Fire Environment Working Group with the Oregon Department of Forestry. And this is a group of fire behavior analysts and fire danger technical specialists who advise our fire managers on the conditions out there. We use weather stations to determine our precipitation, temperature. We look at fuel moistures, either live fuel moistures and dead fuel moistures. And so we use a lot of different kinds of information to characterize the lead up to fire season and monitor those conditions during fire season. And we help advise our fire managers on those conditions so that they can plan where resources are pre-positioned, mobilizing and hiring on the fire staff that they need for the season. We look at fire history and climatological history in order to understand our own local fire environment really well so that we can plan for fighting fire.
That's so much data that you must be going through to analyze all of that. I mean, just all those things you just mentioned. And I think to start off, or just to go off of that just a little bit too, with such a vast area that the state of Oregon is, and so many different varied terrains and climates and all of that, how important is it to have intergovernmental agency cooperation? Do you work with other agencies as well to try to gather all this data and really get a good outlook of it?
That was the next thing I was going to say is we couldn't do what we do without our interagency partners. I go directly to our meteorologists and fire analysts up at the Northwest Interagency Coordination Center out of Portland. And this is a group of the federal agencies such as the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management, and the tribal folks with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, quite a few different agencies. We all get together and we formulate the Pacific Northwest Wildland Fire Coordinating Group. And of course, the Forest Service and the BLM have pretty high-ranking fire analysts on staff who I consult with all the time in terms of understanding all this data that we're processing. And so it's a very tight partnership in terms of understanding the fire environment and working with the data so that we're presenting a consolidated message for the region uh, uh, so that we can all work together better.
When you're looking at the situation right now with that lack of snowfall, really, that's coming up here, especially in the Northern Cascades, how much do you look at that and see, okay, this is going to be an issue further down the road, or is that something that you can even ascertain yet?
Yeah, so as I learn more about the data and using this data, I'm advised by some of our meteorologists that, everybody's worried about the snowpack, and yes, it is indeed a factor. But we're also keeping an eye on the potential for any spring moisture to come. And so we do look at the snowpack and the snow water equivalent, the amount of water that's available when that snow melts. But we're also paying keen attention to what spring temperatures and precipitations are going to bring us. So, yeah, it's, there hasn't been the most strong correlation with snowpack and actual fire season conditions. It's that spring conditions that we're really trying to get a hold of. And so right now, as we look at what's going on, we look at the last beginning of the water year, which is basically October 1st, and we take a look at the temperatures and the precipitation that we've had. And right now, we're suffering with pretty much a snow drought. And but we are looking forward to the potential for a little bit more precipitation to come in spring. Remember last year in 2025, we had some good snowpack in the deep winter going through December, but we had several warm events with rain, which created rain on snow events, and it melted out some of that snowpack. But we got some pretty cold temperatures in later March and April, and so it brought some of that snowpack back. So I continue to consult with our true meteorologists in order to understand what the data is showing us.
Are there, looking at this of where we're at right now, are there certain things that you can do to try to prepare for those situations as far as any kind of forest management or something along those lines?
Well, like for homeowners, I kind of want to address that is in the springtime when debris removal is available to you, I would definitely start home hardening and creating defensible space around your home. There's always things you can do to make sure that any embers that might come from any nearby fire doesn't have a chance to ignite other materials near your home. And so just kind of that is the background. We're really leaning on folks to pay attention when fire season comes around, to pay attention to local emergency alerts, and keep in touch with your local fire weather forecasts, which the National Weather Service does provide. Any burn bans. We have resources online like our regulated use map. It shows what level of conditions that are conducive to doing any kinds of activity out in the woods and so forth. In terms of the bigger kind of forest management, we've been implementing a pretty healthy prescribed fire program. We've just worked out a lot of the nuts and bolts for prescribed fire. And so there have been prescribed fires over winter, and they have to pay attention to what they're doing when they burn. But so there is activity going on right now to reduce those understory fuels that act as ladder fuels that can allow for flames to reach up into the canopy. So there's a lot of activity in forest management, including prescribed fire, and there's still the other part of the equation, which is really focusing on homeowners to create their own defensible space and make their home safer from wildfire. Especially remember the embers.
Yeah, those embers, that can go a long way as well, depending on if,
Mm-hmm.
there's a wind event going on with something.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah.
Looking at the state of things right now, do you have, and I guess let me ask you this, using all of this data that you have available and these different people that you can coordinate with, and the historical data as well, do you see any signs of this upcoming wildfire season to be anything out of the ordinary, abnormal, or is it still just kind of wait and see what happens with the March and April potential precipitation?
Well, you can tell right now that our statewide average of snowpack is about 36% of normal. We're pretty darn low in some areas. Some snow measuring sites, they're at less than 15% of in recent history. And so we're at very, very low snowpack conditions, and that's going to affect the depth and the amount of snow that's available is going to affect the fuel moistures and the soil moistures around the region. And, the sooner that snow melts as temperatures warm through the spring, the less available moisture we're going to have later in the season for live fuels and dead fuels to have any access to that moisture. And so with this low snowpack and an early melt of snowpack, it's going to accelerate drying of any surface fuels, leading to a potential onset of earlier fire season and higher fire risk later on during the season. Earlier melts of snow means that the soils are going to dry out a lot sooner, and that vegetation is going to experience water stress earlier, even live fuels. And that's going to mean more flammable conditions by midsummer and late summer. And so it's that soil moisture availability for the live vegetation that matters, and the dry vegetation that's on the ground, just going to be less access to that potential snow melt, and less potential effluent into the stream system and other water reservoirs where we can draw from for fighting fire, less access points and those kinds of things. And so there's definitely an influence of that snowpack on potential for drying out fuels a lot earlier and a lot more than in the recent past. But we do want to see what comes, like last year's event where we brought more snow back into the picture in spring. We're hoping for that again, but the Climate Prediction Center, the National Atmospheric and Administrative Association, the Climate Prediction Center is showing increased temperatures through spring, not a lot of reprieve, and less precipitation. So we also have the drought slowly starting to kind of settle back into some areas in Oregon where it's becoming abnormally dry. So we are looking forward to what's going to come this spring. But, with all the different forecasts and models, we have a limited confidence that we might have a long enough period of cold to restore some of this snowpack. And so the downstream effects essentially is really the effect of those fuels and having access to water reservoirs and things. And so we're bracing for impact and preparing as best we can, and we will continue to monitor the Climate Prediction Center forecasts and the forecasts coming out of the Northwest Coordination Center from the meteorologists there.
Wow. So a lot of, as you mentioned, just all that data and all the different ways that you're looking through that, but it sounds like, potential for some real concern that could happen this summer.
Yeah.
If things continue this way.
Yeah. So I just remember the last few years, we had this heat domes that formed in 2021. We had a pretty good heat dome. We had warmer temperatures in May and in June, and quite a few folks around the region, some of their even more mature Douglas fir trees suffered mortality. It's a kind of a chain event as the moisture drought for the live vegetation stresses those trees. They become more susceptible to pest invasion and slowly, senesces and reduces that potential for trees to continue. So, we're monitoring for that too. A lot of in the region, some folks are worried about some of their more mature live trees dying, and so all we can do is kind of hope and wait for the forecasts and see what we go a little closer in. But definitely preparing, like some of our districts, like in Southwest Oregon, we have a district there that we just did a fire season outlook for them and talked extensively about the snowpack. Some of their snowtel stations in Southwest Oregon are less than 15% of what they should be. And so, our Southwest Oregon district is one of the ones that go into fire season earlier than other districts. And notably because they're a drier area, more fire prone. And they're already planning and thinking about how to prepare for fire season in the spring.
Wow. So, I mean, that's good to be able to be preparing, this early. But certainly a lot in there and a lot that you do. I want to say thank you so much for having time to talk to us. Is there anything else that you think is important just for the general public to know about your work or just about the potential for this upcoming wildfire season?
Mostly just keep aware. Check for a website called Keep Oregon Green. There's some really good advice there about keeping defensible space around your home. Keep track of those emergency alerts, sign up for them. Take a look at our Oregon Department of Forestry website and the Northwest Coordination Center. The meteorologists there, John Saltenberger and John Bonk, put out their forecasts. We also have a meteorologist, Pete Parsons, who puts out his 3-month forecast. He really gets into the detail on looking at prior years that look like this year in terms of the overall global impacts, like the El Nino and those kinds of things that affect our weather throughout the year. And so take a look at the websites for that. And just pay attention to keeping fire safe.
Teresa, thank you so much for joining us, to talk about this and share this information and for what you do to help everybody here in the Northwest, prepare as much as possible and to understand and try to predict what's gonna happen with all this. And hopefully, sounds like we get, the hope is we get a bunch of moisture here over the next couple of months.
That's what we're hoping for. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate the opportunity and thank you for the support.
Absolutely. And for everybody watching, this is Fox 12 Now. We're live streaming here. We're going to go ahead and take a break. We'll be back in about 25 minutes or so. We're actually going to be joined by Congresswoman Maxine Dexter to talk about her upcoming trip to Texas to check on an Oregon family that's being detained down there. So we're going to hear from her about that. That's, again, coming up here on this platform. So whatever one you're watching on, you'll see me about then. But thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.